So yesterday we got the engine mounts made. It's in there sitting on its own weight now. There's no spacer in there anymore. Fits really nice. Gearbox mount we haven't finalised yet because part of the front frame of the car has been hit from the side and it's been rolled under, so we'll have to straighten it out before we make the gearbox mount to suit it. We'll do that when we pull the engine out. The gearbox is it's holding its own weight, no problem at all, so it's there's no dramas with that. So now we're starting to work on the exhaust manifolds. We just got to pull the studs out so we can fit this tester in. See if it clears the strut tower. The strut towers are really close, but of course the engine does taper away, so it's not as bad as it looks. So we just got to get this to fit as high as it can without contacting the strut tower. And of course we've got those shackle mount engine mounts, so the engine pretty much can't move at all, so you can be pretty tight with your tolerances with things like this, as long as it doesn't cause heat issues, which you don't normally get with this steam pipe. It's pretty well insulated. So we'll get into it.
We're removing the exhaust studs, which allows us to install the exhaust manifolds while the engine is mounted in the car. We're using 32 nominal bore pipe. This matches the cylinder head's port size.
So we got the fitment pretty good. It's we've got a bit of clearance to the strut tower now. On these Falcons, the steering box is not an issue. That's tucked up over the top of the rail, so we don't have to worry about that being in the way, or there's limited moving parts with the steering box as well because it's all done down low down here with the pitman arm and idler arm. So now we can go ahead and finish the manifold. We'll use the tube notcher to cut the small joiners that go between the flange plate and the log for the other 3 cylinders on each side, and then we can get them welded up. We'll put flanges on the end. Those flanges will then move on to our turbo manifold, which is the front part, because the turbo is going to be mounted out the front of the engine, but we can do that later. These have to go on before the engine goes in for good, so we're going to do them now. That's probably a good job for you actually, Woody.
No worries, thanks bro. Each cylinder runner is cut to size and tacked to the main steam pipe log. A hole saw is then used to cut a passage out for the exhaust gas. There is a confined space for the TIG torch, so all the runners are welded to the log before they are welded to the manifold flange. The manifold flange is tack welded to a large piece of box steel to reduce warpage.
Rodriguez has finished welding up the log manifolds. Done a pretty good job for an amateur. Taught him everything he knows. So we're just going to check whether they, we're going to make sure they fit. They better, if he's got this head flange around the right way like I taught him. We've got plenty of clearance between a strut tower now. We reduced them right down to as low as we could get them with, and still be able to get a TIG torch in there. So now we're just marking out the orientation of these flanges. We're going to flange it there, and then you'll have your front section of the manifold that will go to the turbo on either side. These flanges were also made by my mate Matt, who made the head flanges. They're made in the pattern of a Subaru exhaust manifold flange, so you can buy steel, multi-layered steel gaskets for them, which is for the purpose of exhaust manifolds. They don't deteriorate like a normal gasket does. So they're actually a special pattern, nothing that you can buy off the shelf. So we use those, very handy.
And what's happening on the driver's side?
On the driver's side, we've got a bit of a problem with the alternator here. We've got to change this to a swing alternator because there's no tensions anymore, because there's no factory. Basically, we've just got an alternator now. We've got no power steering, no air conditioning, no anything, because this car doesn't have any of that. So we're just going to use the alternator, but we'll just have to put a swing tensioner on it. So it just has an old slot in it, like an old car from the 80s had. But we need to give adequate clearance to the exhaust over the top of it. So we'll just cut that one back a bit and then come up a little bit before we flange it to keep it out of the road of the alternator. Get to it, Rodriguez.
Everything's looking all right, Al?
Yeah, it's okay. Just got to straighten a few things up and weld it up. Then we can start on our turbo mounting. After I get a radiator for it, got a new radiator coming. We'll grab that so we know what our clearances are. We can cut the front of this out to fit it. It's going to be big. And then we'll start mounting the turbo.
Next week, the shed gets a couple of goodies installed, the radiator is in position, and the turbo manifold gets finished off.